Once I finesse this rap
Pull up
game
or shut
up,
up,
you
man.
niggas, I'ma finesse inside toilet paper. Get the f on y'all. I'm quitting the rap.
I really didn't understand. I got some shit I can lose. My youngest still spinning. Just keep your eyes on the news. And when I touch down, I'm getting right back in my groove. They gave me time.
July 21st, 2025, police were called to a quiet cemetery in southeast Washington, D.C., and what they found immediately set their hearts racing. A man was slumped against a small headstone, the kind of scene no officer ever wants to see. The grave belonged to a 6-year-old boy, Rozak Williams, who died just 6 months earlier, leaving a hole in the hearts of everyone who knew him. But this was no ordinary tragedy. The man at the grave was Big Boss Dono, a DC rapper, muralist, and father whose life had always been defined by his art, his ambition, and most importantly, his love for his son. But he hadn't come there by accident. Every day for the past 6 months, he had visited Rozak's grave, speaking to him, telling him, trying to make sense of a grief that refused to ease. And now, at the very spot where he had sought comfort, solace, and a way to keep his son's memory alive, Dono made a final, irreversible choice. The quiet cemetery, meant to be a place of peace, would soon become the setting for a heartbreak that would shock a community. Little did anyone know, the path that led him here had been paved with unimaginable loss, unrelenting grief, and a desperation that could push even the strongest person to the edge. But before we get to that bone-chilling moment at the cemetery, let me take you back to where and how Big Boss Dono's grief started. Donald Curtis didn't grow up privileged. Raised in southeast DC, he navigated streets that offered 2 paths: make it out or get swallowed whole. Gunshots were common, opportunity rare. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, life wasn't just tough, it was a daily struggle for survival. Donald faced the same dangers every young man in his neighborhood did: gang violence, the drug trade, and police raids. But even in that harsh reality, Donald had talent, not just a flashy, attention-seeking kind, but raw, undeniable skill. By 2015, he was making waves in DC's underground rap scene, known by his stage name, Big Boss Dono, a name many in Washington, D.C. recognized. His lyrics told stories of struggle, survival, and the raw truth of the streets. Every bar was authentic because he had lived it. He was a man who had a story to tell, a man who had experienced both the highs and the lows of life. Known as Curdy Top to many, Dono was far more than just a fixture in DC's cultural landscape. He was its heartbeat. But success was never a straight path for Dono. Along the way, he found himself caught up in controversies, including a headline-grabbing altercation at Stadium nightclub involving members of the Migos. Even with moments of turbulence shadowing his rise, he refused to slow down, pushing out tracks like Lego Me, a song that quickly became a rallying cry in his neighborhood.
Leg on me. Look at this leg on me. Look at this leg on me. You lucky the night that I came for the chain, and young nigga then I had leg on me. I'd have cut back and start squeezing that thing. QC just would have been dead to me. You didn't see security when you walked up the stage. When I took your chain, should have seen your face was the move. Hit me with the bottle, that's cool. See me right now, got the tube. You got this little baby confused. I am so rude. You niggas had to jump me. Still left that bitch with no bruise.
And yet, as promising as his music career was, it wasn't what defined him. He was a devoted father to his 2 children, especially to his son, Rozzick Williams. Sadly, Rozzick would be the reason Dono would tragically lose his life. On January 11, 2018, Donald Curtis became a father. Rozzick Williams entered the world and instantly became the center of Dono's universe. Nothing else, music, murals, fame, street reputation, mattered as much. The bond between father and son was undeniable. Every video, every photo, every social media post reflected a love so profound it changed Dono from the inside out. Brotherhood, family, and his son became his anchor. He had another child, but his connection with Rozzick was different, deeper. Rozzick was his motivation, his joy, his reason for moving forward. For a few years, life felt manageable. Dono balanced his career, his murals, and his music, all while being a dedicated father. But fate was about to test him in a way no street battle or career obstacle ever could. By January 2021, Rozzick was 3 years old, full of energy and innocence, the kind of light every parent cherishes. Then came the diagnosis every parent dreads: cancer. A little boy, barely out of diapers, was now fighting for his life. For Dono and Sierra, the world stopped. Every plan, every dream, every expectation dissolved into hospital rooms, treatments, and the crushing uncertainty of whether their son would survive. But Dono didn't falter publicly. He became exactly what Rozzick needed: protector, anchor, and warrior. While the medical treatments waged a war of their own, chemotherapy, radiation, countless procedures, Dono was the steadfast presence his son desperately needed. Yet, behind closed doors, the toll was immense. Sleepless nights, anxiety, the terror that each new doctor's visit might bring devastating news. It crushed him. He carried this weight alone, believing that being a father meant never showing weakness. His social media updates tried to mask his despair, but anyone reading between the lines could see the cracks. Every post, every caption revealed a man quietly drowning under grief that was all-consuming. Rozzick, however, was a fighter. Obsessed with Spider-Man, he found courage in the superhero's strength, perhaps even feeling empowered despite his fragile body betraying him. His family called him their tiny warrior, a boy who faced more than most adults ever would. Rozzick kept fighting, but each hospital visit eroded Dono's hope, the feeling of failure. By late 2023, the treatments weren't working. The cancer was relentless. But the unthinkable happened on January 9th, 2024. Rozzick Williams took his last breath at just 6 years old. Curtis lost the one thing that had given his life meaning. The grief was overwhelming for Dono. Rozzick had been his world, his source of strength, the one he promised to protect no matter what. From the day his son entered the world, Dono swore he would guide him through every obstacle life placed in his path. Now, with Rozzick gone, that vow felt shattered. The loss carved a void in Dono's heart, a wound so deep it seemed nothing could ever heal it. The funeral that followed was a mix of heartbreak and homage. A Spider-Man-themed casket, red and blue webs, masks and decorations that reflected the superhero identity of the boy who had inspired everyone around him. The community came out in force, friends and family sobbing as Dono stood before the tiny casket. In front of everyone, he fell apart completely, the grief unfiltered and raw. His voice cracked as he spoke to his son, not the crowd.
What's up, y'all? See, I ain't gonna talk to y'all, I'm gonna talk to him. See, baby boy, the life I used to live was so crazy, you feel me? But when I met you, Sierra said, "You got a son." I'm like, "No, I don't." She sent me a picture of you. I'm like, hold up. Oh, he looked too like me. Oh, moving too fast. Hold up. So I sent it to my mother. My mother said, "You so stupid." I'm like, And when I took the test, and not even before the test part, when she rolled that back window down, you was sitting right there, and he looked at me. And he reached up, and I'm like, "You don't even know who I am." But he looked at me so, like, with a look in his eyes, like, I know I was waiting on you. I started getting them every weekend. Then I started getting them every week. And then they just end up being with me. But I end up, like, really taking in the responsibility that I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know I was taking care of the little boy. I just was doing it. He changed my life in so many ways. I missed so many bullets, police, all types of stuff because I was busy with him. With that being said, baby boy, I want to say I love you and thank you, man, for coming into this world to guide me the right way, man. I don't know why God took you away from me, though, but I know why he put you in his life, though. I love you, your daddy, man.
But it didn't end at the funeral. For 6 months, Dono visited Rozik's grave almost daily, speaking to him, apologizing, seeking guidance, and grappling with the void left behind. Externally, he tried to maintain normalcy, music, murals, and his other child, Sierra, but inside, his soul had left with Rozik. Depression can look like functionality, and that was Dono's reality. Outwardly present, inwardly broken. Sierra tried to intervene. She reached out, encouraged him to seek support, and reminded him that he wasn't alone. But grief is selfish, isolating, and Dono's pain was all-consuming. Social media posts dwindled, always reflecting the past, never the future. There was only before and after, the before being Rozik alive, and the unbearable after when he was gone. It was on July 21st, 2025, that the tragedy came full circle. Dono returned to the cemetery once more, pulling up quietly and settling beside his son's headstone, etched with the words, "The world's biggest superhero." The weight of grief pressed down on him as he sat there, still consumed by the loss. In that moment, he reached for his phone and shared a haunting post on Instagram, cold, raw, and heavy with finality. The message read like a farewell, an apology, an admission of exhaustion, and a plea for peace. He confessed that he was sorry, that he could no longer carry the burden, that he hoped to reunite with loved ones someday. He mentioned his parents, his siblings, his friends, but above all, he spoke of Razak, the son who had been his anchor. What no one realized was that these words would be his last. Later that day, a passerby noticed something was wrong and alerted the authorities. By the time police arrived, Dono was slumped against the grave, motionless. The medical examiner confirmed what many feared. Big Boss Dono had taken his own life. Dono's final act, choosing to end his life at the resting place of his child, left his community shattered. Friends, fans, and family were left grappling with the enormity of the loss, mourning not just a father and artist, but a man whose grief had consumed him entirely. But what happened in the weeks after Dono's death revealed just how deeply one man's grief can ripple through a community. Southeast DC, a neighborhood accustomed to resilience in the face of violence, was suddenly confronted with a tragedy that couldn't be explained by street danger or crime. 2 graves, 6 months apart, 2 lives lost, a father and his son. And yet, there was a lesson buried in the sorrow, a story about love, loss, and the consequences of untreated grief. Right at that moment, the community realized that Dono had carried a weight no one could see. While murals and music celebrated his life, they also became markers of warning signs that, had they been recognized earlier, might have changed the outcome. But grief, unlike violence, doesn't always come with obvious alarms. It hides behind smiles, hashtags, and the routine of showing up, of going through the motions. Meanwhile, across town, the ripple effects began to show. Friends and family shared memories of Razak and Dono, many of which had never been captured publicly. They spoke of Dono's unwavering dedication to his son, the lengths he went to ensure that Razak felt safe, loved, and celebrated, even as he battled an aggressive cancer. But in the background, the silent struggle had been mounting, unnoticed by those he trusted the most. And ever since then, social media posts became a haunting chronicle. Photos of Razak in superhero costumes, snapshots of murals painted for community kids, all served as bittersweet reminders that Dono's world had ended the day Razak died. But there was one thing that stood out, a final message, brief yet devastating in its simplicity, from Sierra. He just wanted his son. It encapsulated everything that led to that tragic day in July 2025. Soon enough, questions began to emerge. How could a man so resilient, so talented, so publicly strong be left to suffer in silence? Could the weight of grief have been shared? These questions weren't rhetorical, they were urgent. Every detail of Dono's life leading to that grave offered clues, not just to what happened, but to what can be done to prevent similar heartbreak. Community members who had gathered at Dono's memorial weren't just mourning, they were learning. It was a message, a reminder that love and loss, strength and vulnerability exist side by side. They were asking themselves difficult questions. Are we checking on the people we care about? Are we noticing when someone is silently drowning? Could this have been prevented? But then the conversation spread further. Local artists added tributes to Dono's murals, leaving permanent marks to honor both him and Razak. Hip-hop artists shared stories of his work, amplifying the message that grief is universal and support is essential. Suddenly, Dono's tragedy became a catalyst, a force compelling the community to confront an uncomfortable truth. Men, particularly fathers, are often left to carry pain alone. But what makes this story so devastating is also what makes it so important. Dono's love for Razak was absolute. His identity, his purpose, and his very reason for changing his life were entwined with his child. When Razak died, the future that Dono had imagined, the music, the murals, the moments of joy, vanished with him. He wasn't giving up out of weakness, he was responding to a void that had no solution. But then, a single realization brought the community into sharp focus. Dono's experience was far from unique. Studies show parents who lose children face elevated risks for depression, substance abuse, and even suicide. Men especially suffer in silence, conditioned to stay strong and not reveal vulnerability. Dono's death wasn't a failure of character, it was a failure of awareness, a failure of support structures. As detectives and social workers reflected on the events, the narrative became clear. Donald Donna had survived bullets, police raids, and every danger Southeast DC could throw at him. Yet no resilience could prepare him for the grief of losing a child. He became a cautionary tale. Strength in public can mask devastation in private, and untreated grief can quietly consume even the strongest among us. Not only that, but the story sparked conversations across neighborhoods, schools, and community centers. Barbershops, churches, and recreation halls became impromptu forums for men to talk about grief, to admit when life felt unbearable. Conversations that might have been taboo were suddenly necessary. It was a painful but vital awakening, a shift that Dono, even in death, inspired. And ever since then, his murals, once just street art, transformed into sacred spaces. Community members left candles, Spider-Man figurines, notes, and small tributes for Razik and Dono. Every mark left behind was a reminder that these were lives that mattered, that grief deserves recognition, and that men must be able to express pain without judgment. While the memorials grew, the story revealed that what Dono had carried internally wasn't visible externally. Social media updates, videos, and public appearances painted a picture of resilience and composure. But the truth was, he had been spiraling. Each missed treatment, every setback in Razik's health compounded the weight until the point where living without his son became unbearable.
It's a very, very special day. We're in deep mourning, deep mourning for Curly's child. A man that was a great man. He did something that we all would never understand. But we're gonna celebrate his life in a big way today. From the 3 Hawk, everybody show up. Don't be late. Be there, or be square, or deal with me and AJ.
I want to give a big shout out to Curly Top. You already know. Look, man, I want to tell y'all, right? If you know your friend going through something, if you don't know your friend going through something, talk to them, reach out, call them, check on them daily.
Hey, that's what we doing, let's go. That's what we doing. You better walk that shit out, nigga. Talk to him. Let's go. If you know it, talk your shit.
That big ass nigga.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Glow Wild, and I'm coming back to y'all with another one. Today we're gonna be talking about Big Boss Dono, aka Curly Top. Visual was held yesterday at Anacostia Park. It was a success. It was peaceful. Everybody came out and showed up and showed out. Everybody was engaged with one another, hugging and loving on one another. You know what I'm saying? People who didn't even know each other was engaging with one another, sharing the love, you know what I'm saying, celebrating the life of Curly Top. You know, last week he passed away due to taking his own life, you know what I'm saying. Everybody came together yesterday. It was a lot of sad people because people still grieve, you know. It hit hard. It hit the southeast part hard, you know what I'm saying. To the city prayer, everybody was out there dancing, doing this leg dance, you know what I'm saying. Let's go get some paper. Let's go get some hundreds. Let's go get some 50s. Let's go get some 20s. You hear me? You know what I'm saying? It was lit, man. Everybody went to the block. I seen people I ain't seen out there in years, you know what I'm saying? It was all love, man. Prayers and condolences to Curly Top and his family, you know what I'm saying? His parents was out there. I'm glad everybody respected the rules, you know what I'm saying? Not wearing the RP shirts, you know what I'm saying? They had posters of him out there, man. He was looking sweet, you know what I'm saying? His family was out there. The men was out there. The ladies was out there. I'm glad the ladies ain't starting no drama, you know what I'm saying? It was lit, man. RP Curly Top, man. Y'all make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Drop y'all thoughts in the comment section. Turn them notification bells on and share. I'm going to keep y'all updated. Until next time. Peace.
Right at that moment, family and friends began to piece together behaviors they had previously dismissed. The constant visits to the cemetery, the messages reflecting on the past instead of planning the future, the retreat from social interactions. These weren't eccentricities, they were distress signals that now seemed tragically obvious. But just when it seemed the story could only be about despair, there was a broader message emerging. Dono's legacy wasn't just tragedy, it was a call to action. It forced the community to confront uncomfortable truths. Fathers carry unseen burdens, grief can be invisible, and intervention, whether by family, friends, or professionals, isn't just helpful, it can be life-saving. Despite the heartbreak, the story of Dono and Razik created a ripple of awareness. It led to initiatives for mental health support, community check-ins, and grief counseling programs targeted towards fathers. Local artists and rappers turned murals into conversation starters. Schools invited discussions about coping with loss. Every effort tried to ensure that no father or parent would quietly fall into despair the way Dono did. But then, the narrative took on a haunting layer. While the community worked to understand and act, the stark reality remained. No one can replace a lost child. The gap left in a father's life is irreplaceable, and the sheer weight of that loss can override even the strongest instinct for survival. For Dono, the only place he felt some semblance of connection was beside his son's grave. Everyone knew Dono as a rapper, muralist, and father. Few understood the daily, minute-by-minute struggle to survive emotionally while watching the child he loved most endure horrors no child should see. Meanwhile, across social media, fans, followers, and residents of Southeast DC debated the why behind Dono's final decision. Was it selfishness? Was it a weakness? Or as Sierra clarified in her Instagram post, was it simply a father's unbearable pain seeking reunion with the child he couldn't save? But there was one problem. No one could go back in time. No intervention, no advice, no amount of concern could alter the path once grief had consumed Dono's capacity to endure. And yet, every note, every candle, every Spider-Man figurine left at the graves became a testament to the love that had defined his existence and the lessons his death demanded of the community. Grief can be as lethal as any weapon. Not bullets, not gangs, not disease. It was the invisible, crushing weight of loss that claimed one of Southeast DC's brightest, strongest, and most loved figures. And as the community continued to grapple with the aftermath, it became clear that Dono's story wasn't just his own. It was a reflection of every parent, every father, every person trying to navigate a world that rarely prepares us for heartbreak of this magnitude. But even in this heartbreak, there is a message for everyone watching. Grief is powerful, loss is overwhelming, and silence can be fatal. It's not a weakness to seek help. It's not surrender to admit struggle. Dono's story reminds us that the most important support often comes from acknowledging pain, asking questions, and being present in ways that go beyond words. And just when the world felt the weight of this tragedy, Southeast DC rose to honor the lives lost. Vigils were held across the city. Community members lit candles where Dono's murals still stood, leaving notes and mementos. Dono's story isn't just about a tragedy. It's about the fragile, precious nature of human life, the devastating power of love, and the necessity of support. Finally, as the community continues to honor Dono and Razik, we are reminded that attention to mental health, compassion, and active support can save lives. Their graves, murals, and music will endure, but the living must act, speak, and notice. Grief doesn't heal on its own. It needs voices, empathy, and care to prevent repetition of such heartbreak. And so, as we reflect on Big Boss Dono and his son Razik, we see the intersection of love, loss, and community. A father whose life revolved around a son he couldn't save, a neighborhood that learned a painful lesson, and a story that demands awareness. Rest in peace, Big Boss Dono and Razik Williams, the world's biggest superhero and his devoted father. Let this story remind you to check on those silently struggling. Reach out, ask questions, and offer support. Love, care, and awareness are the only ways to prevent grief from claiming another life. Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.